You're not looking kiss my son. I can kiss my son. Come on.
Ridiculous. They're both guys. They do weird things in their house, and young men have left their house screaming to get away from them in their mentorship.
Q, I don't want to be this character anymore.
Who wants to even see a movie about with some stereotypical characters? What's the always talking about keep it real? We have 25 years of keeping it real and being real and all that. You really see that's reflected in the movies that they made. The characters are trying to be reflective of, you know, people in society. The stereotype, especially some stereotype successful, that's gold. I ain't seen stereotypical that was successful since then.
We are fighting those same evils today. In America, in the United Kingdom, across the globe. And we need to be clear, shamelessness is not and will never be a superpower. It is the mark of a villain. Kidnapping children is not what great nations do.
For nearly 3 decades, Will Smith stood at the top, building a box office legacy worth billions while studios rolled out every possible privilege and the media shaped him into the image of a flawless family man, someone who seemed to have life completely figured out. And if anything ever felt off, people simply stayed quiet, because that's often how the system works, not out of loyalty or friendship, but because success protects itself. However, that silence didn't last forever, as voices like Jim Carrey and Eddie Murphy began speaking more openly, cutting through years of carefully maintained narratives and bringing renewed attention to long-discussed tensions and questions surrounding the industry. And everything reached a boiling point on March 27, 2022, during the Academy Awards, when Smith struck Chris Rock on stage in front of millions, a moment that shocked audiences worldwide. But what followed raised even more eyebrows, as parts of Hollywood responded with applause, rather than clear condemnation, sparking debate about power, influence, and accountability in entertainment. While Carrey, in particular, made it clear he wasn't willing to stay silent, adding even more fuel to an already intense conversation.
I was sickened by the standing ovation. I felt like Hollywood is just spineless, en masse. And it really felt like, oh, this is a really clear indication that we're not the cool.
Calling it cowardly might be how some saw it, but Jim Carrey wasn't trying to throw cheap shots. He was breaking down what he believed was a much bigger issue, and when he introduced the idea of the Avatar dilemma, it reframed everything around Will Smith, suggesting that after decades of playing the hero, the family man, and the ever-smiling star, the line between the real person and the public image had started to blur. And once that image was challenged, especially on a stage as massive as the Academy Awards with Chris Rock involved, the reaction wasn't just about a joke, but about protecting a carefully built identity that had been reinforced for years. Importantly, Carrey made it clear he wasn't attacking Smith personally, but highlighting a system that creates these larger-than-life personas and then shields them when cracks begin to show. And while Carrey approached it like a thinker trying to explain the moment, Eddie Murphy has always taken a more direct stance, showing his discomfort with Hollywood's award culture long before this incident, from walking out after the Academy Awards loss for Dreamgirls to making a rare appearance at the Golden Globe Awards where his words carried extra weight precisely because he rarely steps into that spotlight, and together, their perspectives added fuel to an ongoing conversation, not just about one moment, but about the pressures, expectations, and illusions built within the industry itself.
Taxes. Mind your business. And keep Will Smith's wife's name.
The atmosphere quickly turned tense, and when Eddie Murphy later clarified that it wasn't just a throwaway joke, it made people listen more closely, because he was pointing toward deeper issues like image, identity, and the pressures tied to public masculinity, especially in someone like Will Smith, whose persona had been carefully shaped for decades. To really understand why voices like Jim Carrey and Murphy reacted the way they did, you also have to look at moments like Red Table Talk, where Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith openly discussed personal struggles, including her relationship with August Alsina during a separation. And while Smith presented himself as calm and understanding in that conversation, many viewers felt it revealed the immense pressure behind maintaining a public image, which only added more context to the reactions and debates that followed later on.
I will going through a very difficult time.
Yeah.
And we decided.
I was done with your ass.
Yeah, you kicked me to
I
the
was
curb.
done with you.
Yeah.
Marriage is
What followed quickly became a global talking point, even turning into memes. But voices like Jim Carrey and Eddie Murphy seemed to view it through a different lens, suggesting that moments like the Red Table Talk appearance weren't just emotional disclosures but also shaped how the public perceived Will Smith, where showing forgiveness helped reinforce a familiar image and shifted attention away from ongoing rumors about his personal life, raising questions about how much of it was genuine versus carefully managed perception. To be fair, separating confirmed facts from speculation is important here, and one well-documented example is what happened on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where Janet Hubert was replaced in 1993 after a contract dispute, and in the years that followed, she was often labeled as difficult within the industry, something she later addressed directly alongside Smith during their reunion, highlighting how narratives can stick and shape reputations long after the initial situation has passed.
You know, words can kill. I lost everything. Reputation. Everything. Everything. And I understand you were able to move forward, but you know those words, calling a black woman difficult in Hollywood is the kiss of death. It's the kiss of death, and it's hard enough being a dark-skinned black woman.
Whether Will Smith was the central figure or simply part of a much larger machine, his reunion with Janet Hubert made one thing clear: while one career took a serious hit, the industry continued to protect its most valuable asset. That pattern seemed consistent even years later, like in 2012 during the filming of Men in Black 3, when reports confirmed that Smith had a massive double-decker trailer placed in Soho, sparking complaints from locals yet remaining untouched, highlighting the level of influence he carried at the time. And while those are documented events, much of what followed online exists in a very different category, with figures like Brother Bilal, Dwayne Martin, and Jaguar Wright making claims that have circulated widely but remain unverified and publicly unaddressed, alongside past remarks from Alexis Arquette about Smith's first marriage to Sherry Zampino and connections to Benny Medina, all of which are important to label clearly as allegations rather than established facts. However, what is observable is the shift that came after the Oscars incident and the public criticism from voices like Jim Carrey and Eddie Murphy, as Smith's film Emancipation failed to gain the kind of traction or awards recognition he had enjoyed for decades, suggesting that the same industry that once stood firmly behind him began to quietly distance itself, reinforcing Carrey's sharp observation that in Hollywood, support often follows what benefits business rather than any deeper sense of principle.
A hassle. I'd announced this morning that I was suing Will for $200 million because that video is going to be there forever. It's going to be ubiquitous. You know, that insult is going to last.
If it had happened to him, Jim Carrey even suggested he would have taken immediate legal action, pointing out how a moment like that lives on forever once it's captured on camera, and in many ways, that's what shifted everything for Will Smith. A global superstar once seen as untouchable suddenly faced the reality that even immense success has its limits when it comes to public behavior. The reaction from Hollywood made it clear that support isn't endless, but often tied to what remains beneficial, and when that balance changes, so does the loyalty, which is exactly the broader issue voices like Carrey and Eddie Murphy were pointing toward, not out of personal dislike, but from years of witnessing an industry that frequently prioritizes image over integrity and profit over principle. Looking at the confirmed events alone, from the Academy Awards incident with Chris Rock to the shifting reception of projects like Emancipation, you can already see a complex and sometimes uncomfortable picture. And while unverified claims continue to circulate and raise further questions, they remain just that, claims, yet their presence shows how quickly narratives can evolve once the public begins to question a long-standing image, leaving the bigger question open. Is this about one moment, one person, or a system that has always worked this way behind the scenes?